In life, we have moments of time to show who we are and what we represent in terms of our careers, our professions, and the companies in which we're employed. Sometimes employees don't really realize that their behavior sets the tone for every other employee that is underneath them, literally. And frankly, in the food industry, we have to really think about that. The reason we have to think about that is a lot of people are no longer interested in producing a life that helps others. We also have to think about that because the food handlers of the globe are actually protecting our health, the health of our cells, the health of our beings, because they're the ones that allegedly protect us from foodborne illnesses and other types of amoeba that sort of grow if food is left unattended too long on a counter. When I lived in Japan, there was a marvelous scientific show that talked about how people needed to pay attention to how long they were leaving rice in a rice cooker not plugged in. That elder generations were doing things like they did in the old days, but it wasn't actually safe for the younger generations and their palates and their cellular health. They did the same thing testing miso soup and other things that sometimes waits and sits for a husband to come home from work, or literally goes with a child in a lunch pail to school. You see, in life, Japanese television was all about science, education, and entertainment. We sort of had those programs, those channels that show us how things work, which were great, which my Japanese spouse always loved to watch. She loved to learn how things were made and how things worked. Her mind was like that. She was someone who was so smart, she actually went to high school and nursing school at the same time. When she came here, she had a language barrier, but she literally got herself through 2 university programs. One at IUPUI all the way down to the last 2 classes, which I literally could not help to translate for, in microeconomics and accounting. And I'm totally numerically challenged anyway, so there was no chance of that. And she missed her degree by those 2 classes that were required. What a shame. She could have had a 4-year degree from our huge university in Indiana had she not had to worry about the language barriers involved in those type of classes. She also produced herself a culinary art in baking at my help and my finances and that of my family's, because we put it together that she had that gift of flair of cooking, and she was a phenomenal cook, and passed that along to our son. But in life, what I'm talking about is that we all have to eat. We all have to have safe food. We all have to have farmers that pay attention to pesticides, and we all have to have people not monkeying with their technology. Even as I'm sitting here holding my phone is vibrating and doing things that it shouldn't be doing when I'm on a video cast of an audio cast for myself. In life, we have moments of time to recognize that the companies of the world are sort of violating our rights, putting software on our phones that we don't necessarily want, and we don't necessarily need the residual effects of the technology programming in our phones, taking up space, not allowing us to take photographs, not allowing us to download the software we need, and openly allowing voyeurs and other people to illegally, immorally, and illicitly tap our computers, our phones at public Wi-Fi stations. In life, we have moments of time to show who we are in representation of a company, was where I began, and I've just had some loving days in a local library branch because those people regarded my rights. They also recognized the needs of a person who is literally tired and fed up with the systems that violate our rights. They did some loving things for me, and I am most pleased to recommend that branch any chance I get, because it is a wonderful place with good quality people who really genuinely care about what someone's trying to accomplish while they're there. In life, we have moments of time to prove who we are, not only in the house of God, which is something I talk about in my pastoral presentations to churches that don't quite get homelessness, but openly in general, that people have soul care they need. My book called Soul Keepers talks about that we have family members that will do outlandish things to try and violate the souls that the Lord put in us, as opposed to celebrating and raising us up to the highest ground we can possibly go on God's path for our life. We also have men and women in our communities and business centers that think they have to play one-upmanship battles with other people as a battle of wits to prove their prowess, to take over the thing, and I just experienced that. A woman flagged me down in Noblesville, invited me to her shop in Broad Ripple, and now that I'm here, I can't get that damn woman on the telephone. And I don't mean to disparage her name, but in truth, when I sat there talking to one of her colleagues, that colleague tried to prove that she was just as good as me as the gift of skill that I have, and the truth is, all she was doing was swinging her little hands around, as if a master like me wouldn't recognize it. You see, the energy of the Lord only flows to the people who submit their lives to Him fully. This idea that you've got to pray and meditate to get your answers is really quite true. But full submission is saying, okay, Lord, I made a mistake. I messed up. I did something wrong. And people might say, well, you're homeless, so you did something obviously wrong. You obviously can't market yourself. That's not true. In life, we have monsters in the world, Nazis of the law, who think they have the right to violate a person's body, violate their pockets, steal things from them when they take things out of their pockets in unlawful ways, ruin their names, sick them into mental health, financial debts of $10,000, and openly think they're doing the right thing under what laws? No American laws really allow it, no constitutional laws really allow it either, and certainly no international human rights laws allow the disparagement of a human being's life. And yet, it happens literally every single day in our communities. You see, I have the right to safe, sanitized food, and yet there are little monsters growing and being raised in households where people put the play on them and taint their food for fun.